Hey there. I know all of you are probably wondering where this has been and what exactly is going on. Then again, I don't know what you are all thinking. I mean, it isn't like this is the first time this has occurred. But in any case, for brevity's sake, make sure to watch this video right here to get an understanding of the predicament I was in for a long time up till this point. Also, some of you might already guess it if you've watched that video, but please stick around until the very last second of this episode. It is very important concerning the series and my channel as a whole. Anyways, roll the disclaimer. Note, the following episode and the series in general will cover crucial plot details and events in Blazblue, and will not be afraid to tell what happens in the games and spoilers if necessary. So, unless you intentionally want an idea of what's in store, or need a better grasp on certain concepts, then I would not recommend watching the series as of now. Also, as a note for certain people out there and due to certain comments, I appreciate the fact of you trying to lay out every single detail in the world for Blazblue and what I miss out on. In some cases, it's helpful in case I miss out on some factor or detail. However, note that this series is about covering the major details and events of the story, and as such, not everything can be covered in about 20+ minute video compared to the 4+ games, multiple visual novels, drama CDs, and manga worth of lore and details that envelops this entire series. This is to ensure I can talk about the story in the simplest way possible, so as to not confuse newcomers or viewers with this more complicated than necessary but awesome series. However, I encourage everybody watching this video who wants to know more about the details, what I did or didn't cover, and more to check out the links in the description below to research sources used, as well as checking out comments via the other people if they are there. I greatly appreciate the fact of you caring and willing to help me out and correct me on certain things, but a single man like me who has to research, record, edit, and upload all these pieces of lore into at maximum 25-minute episodes won't be able to cover everything there is to know. With all that out of the way, I now bring you back to your regularly scheduled program. Enjoy. The birth of a new era is nigh, and on the eve of that era, war will be waged, blood shall be spilled, plans shall come forth, and the time for rebellion begins. Hello everybody, fellow recruits of the Monarchy. I am the Monarch of Dragons, and welcome back to a very special episode of Story Explained, the Blazblue universe. That's right, you heard that and read the title correctly. After a year's time, the series, once again, for the third time in a row I believe, resurges just like the Black Beast. Last time, if I remember correctly, we covered a bit of modern history such as the formation of the NOL, Duodecim, as well as the origin story of our favorite white-haired, nicknamed So Damn Edgy protagonist. We are this close to the game's plot finally beginning, but there is still a sufficient remainder of background lore left over. So, what say we finally get rid of the past once and for all? Better pack your grimoires, people. It's going to get violent real quickly. As mentioned before in the previous episode, with the advent of Ars Magus by the Great Sage 9, came the start of a new world order managed by the NOL. Besides the management of grimoires and the construction of the hierarchical cities, they also became responsible for the application of Ars Magus in the modern world. Nearly everything came to use it as a source of fuel. Transportation, power, climate regulators, weapons, you name it. The utilization of Ars Magus is attributed to 3 factors. A grimoire to harness the Seafer around it, there being enough Seafer in the air, as well as the aptitude necessary to wield it. Since aptitude is decided by genetics, turmoil and unrest began to grow amongst the populace, feeling that many are in an unfair disadvantage, combined with the fact that the NOL manages, creates, and distributes grimoires, practically creating a monopoly off of the item. And so, in 2191, possibly unrelated to the aptitude inequality, the 5th hierarchical city of Ibukido seceded from the NOL and aligned itself with 5 other cities in the Ikaruga region, those being Yabiko, Kazumotsu, Wadatsumi, Akutsu Kao, and Akutsu Utsu. Together, they formed the Ikaruga Federation and wished to gain independence from the NOL. This declaration, however, was not recognized by the library, and so began the Ikaruga Civil War, also known as the Second War of Ars Magus. Behind the curtains of the war, however, dark machinations are put into motion, as both Yuki Terumi, going by his host body Hazama, as well as Relius Clover, manipulate both sides of a conflict to further their own goals. The Imperator of the NOL, Tenjo Amano Hokasaka, is secretly overthrown, later joining up with the Akarga Federation as its leader. Since her identity is only known to the heads of a duodecim, the swap goes unnoticed by the public, allowing Terumi and Relius to continue their operations. Around this time, Sector 7, yet another organization secretly formed by Yuki Terumi, began experiments on what they believed to be yet another Black Beast, and by the year 2192 had formed an alliance with the Federation due to greater conflict from the library. The Committee of Sector 7 were given their own underground laboratory under Ibukido to continue their hidden experiments on the Black Beast. In reality, the Black Beast experiments they thought were being conducted were tests to see if they could create the Kusanagi, a legendary prime field device created from the perfect fusion of a prime field device and a piece of the Azure, capable of entering the boundary freely as well as destroy a sonic machine. At the same time, the events discussed in the previous episode, Nightmare Fiction, take place, with Terumi infiltrating Celica's church through Saya and Jin in order to kidnap Saya. The reason being that the girl, with her crazy high aptitude for Ars Magus as a child of Prime Field Device number 5, makes her the only suitable host for Izanami, the embodiment of death. With the girl now in tow and the war underway, the only thing left was to ensure that enough blood is spilled so Izanami can manifest and to successfully create the Kusanagi. In 2193, the NOL excavated the Noxictoris Deus Machina, Nirvana, in the fourth hierarchical city of Naobi. Hearing the news, Relius Clover offers up a deal to Sector 7's committee and head scientist Kokonoe Mercury. If they could retrieve the Noxictoris and bring it to him, then he could reward them with a prime field device needed for their experiments in exchange for the potential of being able to create a new Noxictoris. Tenjo, sensing that her time is near and knowing that the doll could be the only way to prolong her life, agreed to the terms. Thus, the Phenomena Weapon Dispossession operation began. A squadron of mercenaries were sent to Naobi in order to retrieve the weapon, the invasion at first being a success, with no trouble in sight. That all changed, however, when they came to pick up the weapon, realizing that the NOL had arrived to finish excavating. As if the situation couldn't get any worse, the abnormally strong Mad Dog Azrael was released by the committee onto the battlefield with one goal in mind: raise the body count. A bloodbath ensued, with both sides being completely wiped out by the tyrant's overwhelming power, all save for two people. One who was thankfully spared by staying behind, and the other, the captain, who dealt a major blow to Azrael and was able to escape with the weapon in hand. The injuries, however, were major, with the captain on the brink of death. He was later found by Kokonoe and underwent a massive surgery by her hands to save his life. Injected with demon cells, this resulted in his swift, albeit physically life-changing recovery, as he grew to an enormous height and stature, as well as permanently being tainted with a red skin coloration. In a moment of lucidity, the man asked that his memories be sealed away, wishing not to remember the horrific slaughter of his teammates. Kokonoe agreed, and thus, the Sector 7 agent known as Iron Tiger was born. With the mission a success, however, Sector 7 acquired the 11th Prime Field device, who thanks to Relius and Terumi's experiments on Saya, was the first of the three to be based off of her. Lambda, however, was not built for combat, and wasn't used in the Black Beast experiments. Rather, she was relentlessly experimented upon over and over again, so much so to the point where it can only be described as torture. Resenting the use of the experiments, Tenjo planned to use Kushina's linchpin to prevent a Black Beast or worse being born from Terumi or Relius' plans. Regardless of what she thought, however, the experiments continued until one fateful day, the 25th of December, 2194, Christmas Day. The Kusanagi plan had entered the final stages, with the smelting of Prime Field device Mu-12 progressing smoothly at first. Unfortunately, the Prime Field device refused the fusion between her and Hazama, who acted as the Azure Grimoire in the experiment, resulting in the two unable to create the Kusanagi that Terumi was so keenly after. Then, in a matter of intervention, the Takamagahara system forced the Highlander, Gigant Takemikazuchi, which had been strapped to a satellite orbiting the planet after the Dark War, to fire upon the city of Ibukido. Within a matter of moments, the largest of the hierarchical cities in the world vanished. Everything within the city was wiped out. No life remaining, save for two single souls. Mu-12, who as a result of the blast lost all of her memories and more importantly, allowed the Origin, the Prime Field device who started this entire chain of events to be reborn into this world, adopted and christened from the burning fields by Edgar and Claire Vermillion as Noelle Vermillion. And the second, Lambda 11, who was left to rot for a bit before some time afterwards, where she was taken back to Sector 7 by Iron Tiger to be slowly repaired for the next few years. This event would go down in history as the Burning Fields of Ikaruga, and marked a serious turning point within the world. With the populace not knowing that the weapon was actually fired by Takamagahara, many instantly turned to the conclusion that the event was a simple test by the library of their overwhelming power. The war could barely be called a war anymore. It was a demonstration. In 2196, the Federation tried to negotiate a peace treaty in order to end the war and prevent more casualties. But by this point, the NOL had already taken most of Kazumotsu and Yabiko after the Burning Fields incident, with Watatsumi remaining an inaccessible battlefield. The end of the war was fast approaching. Sometime later, after the collection of Nirvana, Relius Clover paid a trip to Sector 7 in order to study her. Based on her design and capabilities, he was able to create a similar doll of his own creation entitled Fluctus Redactum, Ignis. Not happy with that, however, Relius also decided to utilize the souls of his wife, Ignis Clover, and daughter, Ada Clover, as the basis for both of the dolls' identity. Greatest father of all time, ladies and gentlemen. Unfortunately, the souls of both were not enough to make them work, and so he tipped off the NOL to the location and Sector 7's plans to create a Noxic Taurus, resulting in a skirmish between both forces, as well as the cauldron within going berserk and creating a mini black beast. With no other choice, Kokonoe had to utilize sorcery in the spell Infinite Gravity to condense the beast so tightly to where it couldn't act anymore, transforming it into two small cores. Happy with the results, Relius took both the cores and automatons back home with him for further experimentation. At around the same time and slightly before, Jin Kisaragi graduated from the NOL Military Academy in January of 2197, becoming a member of the military with the rank of First Lieutenant. It should also be noted that the following of what is discussed is covered within a standalone novel titled Blazblue Spiral Shift, Hero of the Frozen Blade. And since this video is already going to be long enough as is, I'm just going to be covering the bare minimum of what needs to be known in regards to war. So, in summary, Jin joins up with the 9th Squadron, a group entitled the Hound Unit, tasked with weakening Federation forces so that other squads may come in and claim the glory for themselves, thereby earning promotions. When the miniature Black Beast incident at Sector 7 occurred, Jin's squad was the first to report what had happened hours after, with Kokonoe already being gone by this point. Later, hearing about the events at the lab and despairing at the war, Tenjo decided to transfer her soul into the Noxic Taurus, Phoenix Retenjo, knowing that it was the only option left for her. Later that year, the final battle began as Jin was sent to Yabiko, with a decree from Kagura Mutsuki, head of a duodecim and key figure of the NOL, to deploy all forces available in order to end the war quickly. What followed was a series of battles against Federation forces, as well as the Sector 7 agent Iron Tiger, ending with Kagura being badly injured by the Red Devil, forced to shift command of the battlefield over to Jin, and flown away to NOL headquarters for recovery. In reality, this entire battle was orchestrated so that Kagura, with the aid of Kokonoe, could quietly sneak Tenjo's heir Homura out of Ikaruga, as well as put the Mad Dog Asriel into deep freeze. The final charge against the Federation commenced soon after, with Jin leading the assault against Watatsumi and the various forces that opposed them, all without taking a single life himself. Bane Shishigami, a member of the Ikarugan ninjas who had been tasked with evacuating the populace, tried to save Tenjo from her imminent assassination, being given instead the Phoenix for Tenjo. Soon after, Jin stormed into the main room, freezing everything and incapacitating Bane before killing the former Imperator where she stood. Thus, the Ikaruga Civil War came to a close. With news of Tenjo's death reaching everyone's ears, many soldiers lost their will to fight, surrendering without hesitation and dissolving the Federation as a result. Recognized for his actions throughout the war and ending it, Jin received 2 massive promotions to Major, becoming the youngest commander of a squadron in the NOL's history, and receiving the title of the Hero of Ikaruga. Survivors from Ikaruga were rescued by Bang and taken to the newly built Kagatsuchi, creating a new home for them called Ronin-gai. And thanks to the efforts of Kagura, 4 of the cities that allied with the Federation were slowly being rebuilt to their former glory. That being said, the cities of Ibukido and Watatsumi were still unable to recover from the devastation that was brought upon them. The NOL was publicly cast in a bad light due to the Burning Fields incident, and even though Terumi and Relius failed in bringing about either of their goals right that instant, the argument could be made that they still won. The Kusanagi might not have been born into the world successfully, but the event did bring about the birth of Noelle Vermilion, who would become the epicenter of many of Terumi's plans, later even gaining the powers of a Godslayer. Information that might have ruined their plans was stopped, key point of which being Jin's memories with his assassination of Tenjo being devoured by Terumi. Plus, the amount of blood shed within the war sped up the awakening of Izanami massively, resulting in her eventual debut at the end of Continuum Shift. Many others were also negatively impacted, most of all being Ragna, who as a result of the war in Terumi was left without a home or family and had to be taken in by Jubei. As a result of all this, however, the seeds had been planted for Ragna to start his rebellion not just against the NOL, to search for Saya, but also against the very order of the world and God 1 year after the war ended. The wheel of fate had finally begun to turn. And now, seeing as how you've gotten to the end of this video and have decided to stick around, it is about time that I talk about something very major for the series and channel. That being the fact that, from this point onwards, I'm officially discontinuing the Story Explained series. This was a decision that I was already considering for quite a while, and was one that had especially become prevalent prior and ever since my update video. But suffice it to say, I've just not had fun with making this series as of late. What started as an experiment for my channel to broaden out my content became a juggernaut of immeasurable proportions that I just couldn't have predicted. And for that, I have to thank everybody who has stuck by and watched this series, even when I may have not been the most generous in terms of uploads. But it is also important to stop and realize when enough has been enough, especially when the pressures become absolutely crushing, knowing that these are by far my most popular videos and that so many rely upon and thank me. What's the point in continuing onwards if you yourself don't enjoy it? The update video was created as a way to explain to some my situation, as well as provide myself some time to think it over, consider what certain comments say, and while this video might have been an absolute pain to create, I think it was the better choice to leave the series off of a determined endpoint, rather than just abruptly stating in an update video that the show is over. Now, that isn't to say that there will be no more Blazblue content in the future, much less ones related to the story. Hell no. I still fully intend to keep this key pillar of my channel around. It's just the fact that I want to move on to other projects that I actually enjoy, ones that can show off my personality and style more accurately than this series. I sympathize with those who might be bummed or even mad about seeing this end, but please, understand. Regardless, thank you. Thank you all for being patient, showing your support and love, your criticism, and more. I certainly wouldn't be the same without you or this series. I have been the Monarch of Dragons, and I hope to see you all in the next great journey, whatever that might be. Have a fantastic day / night, wherever you live. Peace.